Or how would you propose to address some of the funding challenges we have for the needs of an aging county and some social and economic challenges migrating out of the city?
So, and it's going to be it's going to be a quick answer, and the answers aren't easy, they're simple, but we have to have the audacity and wherewithal to do them. The $43 million taxpayer dollars that went to Towson Row, I get confused between the two, the Towson Hole or Towson Gateway, but that's $43 million right there. That was taxpayer money handed out for private development. They should be getting a loan just like every other small business out there. Shouldn't they? Why should we be subsidizing them? So we need to go ahead and look in our own house and see what we're doing. Why are we giving away money to private developers, tax dollars? So let's start there. Let's start at the top. And so that's my answer to you. We need to look at the top. Where are we putting the money and where are we giving it away? Thank you. Anybody else?
Here's what Mr. Payne would tell you. I voted against the $43 million taxpayer bailout of Towson Row. I repeat, I voted against the $43 million bailouts. Okay? The 3 Republicans on the council voted against the bailout. And that's important. And I voted against it precisely because I thought it should have been more of a loan, not a grant. I didn't like the fact that the Cabinet's administration informed the council through a press release that went out on Black Friday after Thanksgiving. It should have been more of a loan. Absolutely agree with you, and I'm proud that I voted against that. As far as his earlier comments about developers and funding, I've gone against the developers and against the Cabinet's administration and boosted open space funding. We worked for about 2 years, and we finally were able to get it so that the developers in downtown Towson were not exempt from open space fees. They now pay $2,000 per unit. We use that money to expand Towson Manor Park, and we're going to use it for future projects, as the money comes in. But the one thing we can't do is something that Mr. Payne has suggested. Mr. Payne put out on his Facebook page last year the following statement: Baltimore County property taxes should be abolished. He said this.
Oh gosh, yes.
You think they should be abolished?
I'll tell you what, I don't like taxes, sir. Do you?
I don't like taxes either, but property taxes make up over 40% of the revenue that comes into Baltimore County. How in the world are you going to pay for a new Towson High School by abolishing property taxes?
Well, how are you giving away money? So you dropped the PUDs. Let me explain.
Let me finish, Mr. Payne. Let me finish, Mr. Payne. So, it's easy to do what some politicians do, which is to go on Twitter or go on Facebook and say random comments late at night maybe, like this, and then don't have a practical solution. Now, here's what you can do, Marcia, to look at the future. Number one, the high school funding. Our high schools are projected to cost at least $130 million each in Baltimore County. Other counties are building high schools at a much lower rate. Howard County, Harford County, they're projected to build their high schools at around $100 million. Why do ours cost so much? That's something we need to look at. Second, impact fees. We are the only county in metropolitan Baltimore that doesn't assess impact fees. The problem is the county council can't do it unless the state legislature gives us the power to do it. Okay, so that's why we don't have impact fees. The third thing we can look at doing is always trying to get more state aid. We provide $1. We provide $2 for every $1 the state gives us. That's another reality. And then, third, we can always look for ways to cooperate with Baltimore City collegially and public safety and planning initiatives. I think those are certainly very good things we can work on.
The first thing that we should specify we don't want to do, which is to recreate the malgovernance and policy failure that we see in Baltimore City here in Baltimore County. And that is the push of, there's a group that is pushing a regionalization of all sorts of functions. That's how we ended up with this cabinet settlement. Very specifically, the solution is, the millennial generation wants to live in Baltimore City. They're being driven out of the city by the school system, and systemic failure in the Baltimore City school system. So this is unsustainable, it's unjust, But the solution is to begin fixing the root cause of the problem, which is a Baltimore City school system that drives out middle-class families. And there are a number of policies that, there are a number of other policies that Baltimore City could do to make itself a more attractive place that for whatever reason they don't do. Here in the county, in terms of the funding, there's a lot of money out there. We spent $300 million on this STAT project. It's $1,000 for every household in the county, more for the people in this room.
What project?
The STAT, the laptop project. And there are red flags all over the place. It's going to be $50 million a year. We're leasing laptops for 4 years through a middleman. $1,200 to $1,500 per laptop for first graders, but we have class sizes of 28 people. This is not making any sense. And the money is there. If you could just save 10 of $50 million, you could fund a new Towson and Delaney out of that. If we don't do that, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a tax increase, the first in 20 years. The numbers don't add up because we absolutely need, you're right, there are investments that we need to make. We have aging infrastructure. We need a new school. And we either have to manage our government better or increase taxes.
Marcia, thank you for the question. I'm not going to address whether or not county taxes should be raised. That's for the local government to address. But what you've pointed to is part of the reality, is that in the region we are seeing additional problems within the beltway of Baltimore County that need greater attention. This past session, we passed significant legislation that's going to devote more and more resources to some of the poorest parts of the state, and that includes some of the schools in Baltimore County. We have obtained an additional $14 million for schools because of the need for renovations and improvements, and pushing towards community-based schools where we can actually provide more wraparound resources in the communities where there's greatest need. Because our infrastructure for water and sewer are tied to the city, obviously the city's compliance with that is going to affect what it's going to cost any of us on water and sewer bills in the future, and we're going to have to pay attention to how the state is aggressively, hopefully, making sure the city complies with those requirements. But my focus really is how we're going to improve the communities where the schools are failing, or where the communities where the schools are not getting the resources where they need. And that's, again, what we focus a lot on this year, is trying to devote more money for after-school programs. And it's not just Baltimore City, it's Baltimore County and other parts of the state. After-school programs, summer programs, additional teaching resources. And it was a very good move today, I think, for the county executive to add in his budget additional money in the schools where we can get more pupil personnel workers, where we can get more psychologists, social workers, to really look at how we can make sure that the kids are getting the kind of resources they need.